Well, joining us from Westminster now is the Labour MP Stephen Kinnock, who's also a member of the Brexit Select Committee. And in terms of the indicative votes that are going to be put before the House today, what are you hoping that you're going to be able to vote on?
Well, I think the best thing to do would be for the Speaker to select those options that were picking up significant support on Wednesday. And I think that it's really important then that we, as members of Parliament, vote for what we can live with. And there are no perfect solutions in this, and the process certainly isn't a perfect one. But we're trying, with very little time left, having had 2 years of the Prime Minister running down the clock and trying to bully and intimidate Parliament into a false choice between her deal and no deal, we're now at least having a constructive debate. The debate in Parliament last Wednesday was excellent, and I hope that today we will also have a good, grown-up, constructive debate about the way forward for our country.
So the two that we talked about last week that were the most popular were looking at a closer customs union and also the possibility of a second referendum. Which of those do you think is most likely to happen?
Well, I've been campaigning for 2.5 years now for what we call Common Market 2.0. And whilst I can live with those two options that you just named there, I do think that the single market membership that comes with Common Market 2.0 is vitally important. Customs union only solves about 20% of the issues on the Irish border, and also if you look at the border between Turkey and Bulgaria, Turkey only has a customs union-based relationship with the EU, no single market. It's a gridlock on that border, so we need, for smooth and frictionless trade, the single market piece of this. We know that the Scottish National Party is very close to supporting our proposal, and we do hope that this time we would get the... So that is the space that we need to be in, and of course the European Union has confirmed that it's ready to rewrite the political declaration along those lines.
Do you believe, given what we've seen happening in Parliament over the last few months, the last 2 years, that there is any possibility of there being some kind of consensus in the House for a deal that may not be the one of your choosing, but do you think it's possible that MPs can actually come together this week?
Yes, I've always believed that you have a kind of extreme fringe of the Conservative Party that, due to the Prime Minister's weakness as a leader, she's given them far too much power and say in all of this. And once you isolate them and face them down and stop allowing yourself to be bullied by them, you then find this, if you like, silent majority of pragmatic, sensible members of Parliament who live in the real world, who understand that we need to respect the result of the referendum, but who also understand that we must protect the jobs and the livelihoods of the people that we were elected to represent. And I think they understand that 52-48 was a mandate to move house, but to stay in the same neighbourhood. And it's in that spirit of compromise that we've been campaigning for Common Market 2.0. And my goodness, I think it's time for British politics to rediscover the lost art of compromise.
Do you think that Labour MPs will follow the whip? Because last week lots of members of the ERG, these hardliners that you are talking about within Theresa May's government, came around more to supporting her. But ultimately, you know, if Labour frontbenchers who defied the whip had actually voted in the way they were meant to, it could potentially have gone through.
Yes, I hope that we will move to a position where the Labour whip is given to the serious options that have a chance of winning and that have a chance of delivering for jobs and the economy. That has to be our primary consideration. And if the Labour whip is given and we have that level playing field, then members of Parliament should vote for what they know they can live with. And I believe that on that basis, an option has a really good chance of emerging that can deliver what the British people are looking for, which is a consensus across Parliament, a stable majority that can get us through this phase, but can also get us through the ratification of the withdrawal agreement bill, of course, which would be putting this into our own legislation, and then going into the negotiations with the EU going forward. It's time for the realists in Parliament to come to the fore and to recognise that we are a great country, but we're a great country that is working closely with our European partners. We have interdependencies, and we need an institutional framework to manage those interdependencies. And it's up to us now, I think, to say, look, there is a way of us leaving the European Union, but forming this outer tier, if you like, of countries with Norway and possibly other countries that would see the opportunity to have a single market-based relationship with the European Union without being part of the deeper, ever closer union. No European Court of Justice, no common agricultural policy, no common fisheries policy, the right for Parliament to block EU legislation that it doesn't like. This is the kind of relationship that I think many of us who have said, many people on the doorstep in my constituency say, look, we voted to join the common market in the 1970s, but then Europe became something we hadn't really voted for. Well, let's reset the relationship and create a new platform for European cooperation.
But it's some people who think like that. It's not all people, and you don't know whether or not it is most people. The interdependencies that you talk about are things that a lot of people specifically voted to leave the EU over. And when you talk about the single market, the greatest concern for many people is immigration, and that was pretty much the key issue for many at the referendum.
There's a very important article in the EEA agreement, Article 112, which is in essence an emergency brake, where a country can unilaterally withdraw from free movement of labour on the basis of circumstances that it feels where there's political, economic or other societal pressures. It's right there in the EEA agreement, in black and white. We would have the right to use it. It's, of course, what Mr. Cameron tried to negotiate from within the European Union. So whilst it doesn't give full control on free movement of labour, it's impossible to have that if you want to be connected to the single market. However, there's also a lot more that we could do on immigration control, such as other EU member states do. As you know, in Belgium, for example, you have to register with the local commune before you can seek work in and be properly registered in the system. So there's much that we can do within the context of free movement of labour. EEA gives an additional power. What I would say on not everybody wants it, no, I think that's right. But if you look at the 52-48 mandate, as I say, I think that is an instruction to move house, but to stay in the same neighbourhood. We have to look at the result as an aggregate rather than trying to figure out what every one of the 17.4 million people that voted Leave wanted or every one of the 16 million who voted Remain wanted. That's an impossible task. Let's look at the result in aggregate and let's recognise we have to reunite our deeply divided country.
It is. It's an impossible task to guess. I think there are maybe some people watching who be saying, hang on, I voted for my neighbours to move house and for me to stay exactly where I am. Stephen Kinnock, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.